All right, welcome. I thought I would just try and do a pretty short episode. I'm trying and make my shit more condensed. I think that would be helpful. So, as usual, I'm going to be sharing screen. We have here Wikipedia. Allow. We're going there. Okay. So, the basic premise that I want to leave you with is that we are all first responders to what you might think of as a state of total emergency, which we could describe as superplanetary. So, if you look at, for example, world systems analysis, I don't know why I left Wikipedia. I'm just going to go right back to it. But so, world systems analysis emphasizes the world system as the primary but not exclusive unit of social analysis. Again, the unit of analysis, experimental unit, is also means that, basically. If we go over here, I should emphasize this along with the military in the I'm not sure. Anyway, in the introductory writing on experimental unit, I noted how the term experimental unit comes from the military, but I think it's important to bring in basically the scientific definition to weight it, because of course, in this first, is it down here? Right. So first few things to know. So, the term experimental unit comes from the history of military innovation. We have here the source. So this is the kind of thing that I'm drawing from, experimental units in military. But if you go over here, in an experimental study, a physical entity that is primary unit of interest in a research, specific research objective. So that's where I was going right here, right? So world systems theory is described as having the world system as the unit of social analysis. The concept of world can be problematized as, for example, and me bringing up things does not mean that I understand or endorse what I'm talking about. But, Afro-pessimism, I wish I could find Santana, Kaplan, Black Messianicity. So yeah, I guess we can find it here. So this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So it says wordlessness here, but it's really talking about worldlessness. So the problem is, in a way, the world. And maybe similar to Judaism, actually, Afro-pessimism can posit a world to come. But in a way, it's impossible to describe that because the world as we understand it needs to be destroyed. And we can't really form a language for what's to come until that's done. As I said, I don't understand what I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say is that we can problematize this word world. We can also go to Baudrillard. One of my protocols, I have recently, published a compendium. They're still pretty disorganized, but you get the idea. The idea of these protocols is to have sort of agreements. They're supposed to help us level up. Like if these things are common knowledge, it's not just to say we will be in good faith, we can trust each other, but this levels up, in my opinion, our thinking, and obviously there's space for more. But one of my things here, right, is the Sovereign World Protocol, and that's coming from Jean Baudrillard. I feel like this was like 4,000, not that recently, not that long ago, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, it comes from The Perfect Crime here. So I think this is right. What am I trying to say? It's put it into conversation with Bataille, with Schmitt, right? This concept of sovereignty, even going back to Hobbes, right? This idea of sovereignty is most important. And so, here we have Baudrillard talking about is the world's excess that is the world that has excess. It is the world that is sovereign. What this is obviously very poetic, very prophetic. What this means is up to interpretation, right? But the point was, I bring up sovereign. The word world comes up in sovereign world, but we can destabilize this concept of world. We can have world, we can have global, we can have planetary. So global is just very ambiguous. It could mean actually everything. It could mean universal, right? But so universal in what sense, right? I mean, we have the problem of universals, but then it's also just like everything in the universe, right? But anyways, I say superplanetary to say that, just as you might have a total war, and this is where, I'm riffing on the concept of a global battle space. This should be. I mean, full spectrum dominance is one of another core concept here, but I don't know exactly. Maybe this is one. This idea of the global battle space is basically to say that there's something like a state of total war, which is permeating all space, right? And even all time, right? And going back to another trope from Baudrillard, I don't know exactly. He's like, where did it start? Where did everything go wrong? Right. And so, in my opinion, you can really look at World War One, right, in terms of unleashing total war. But if you can look at it many different ways. I think in another way, there it is the same state of emergency that there's always been. And in a way, like this is just what to say. I mean, this is emergence. It's deeper. And this is where we can also get into metaphysical and cosmological considerations that even render conflict itself, total war, sort of moot. If we're thinking about how does something emerge from nothing? And then we get into these questions about what is really happening, why is it really happening, how does causality work? And there's so many things that we take for granted when we assume the stakes are at a certain level that, we can throw into question. And it's actually most interesting to, going back to these protocols, it is most interesting to run, good incarnation protocol, right? Which is basically like we're making the most of the conceit that there are different people. So instead of the martial paranoid relationship to quote unquote the will of the other, where you are I don't know if this is going to come up, probably. So basically, here it is. It's a contest of wills, right? So a certain way of looking at it, and again, Ben Zweibel's is far past this, but so the contest of wills, the problem is, you can't take the will for granted. So anyway, the basic premise here is that instead of thinking about it as total war, we can think about it as a total emergency. I'm not sure if this is a concept, but you just have to think about it as a corollary. So instead of a total war, fundamentally, there's a conflict which is raging, which affects, again, a superplanetary state of affairs, especially when we have some humility about what's really going on. So, for example, with unidentified anomalous phenomena, the whole question of spirituality, angels, demons, it's aliens and all this, it opens up, or just advanced technology, it opens up many mysteries. And I think it's important to be able to sit with that mystery. I think in a way also ultimately to have the intuition that more answers are only going to breed more mysteries. And so as much as we can sit here and wonder about what the real state of things is, the true condition is that we are participating in a state of emergence. So it's not only that there is a state of total emergency, which is permeating all time and space, which is, again, I would say planetary. To start off, planetary instead of, it's worldwide or something. It's planetary, so it affects every point on the Earth's surface. And of course, we have some of our kind or whatever that we know of that are, in orbit. And so obviously those people are part of it. But there's another sense in which the state of emergency is superplanetary. If you think about, for example, the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, right? In that sense, we are in a state of emergency with respect to the rest of the universe. So, like, for example, like we're in a race to be able to prevent another meteor from hitting the Earth before it does. But we are also now at the state of point where I think we would know with enough certainty we're more of a danger to ourselves. So when it comes to, what we are all people who find ourselves on the front lines. We are first responders, not in the sense that we responded first, but like we're first order responders. So, in social justice circles, like if people talk about the people most directly affected, we're all the people that are most directly affected. And part of, how we deal with this, how we engage in emergency response has to do with our understanding that, the responsibility is ours. The responsibility is also other people's, right? And so we need to recognize each other basically as mutually co-responding and co-designing responses to the endemic state of emergency. And of course, I've seen discussion on Archipelago of Design. I'm going to wrap this up here. I've seen discussion on Archipelago of Design about, how do you co-design with your enemies? And this is, again, we are fundamentally grappling with the issue of conflict, but we are desperately searching for ways to engage with global conflict, with just other emergent situations in a way, what to say? It's not even that we're avoiding conflict. It's just that we are not invested. We're not invested in a first order way. Like, we don't fundamentally think that the issue is that there are other people who are alive, and if they just weren't alive, that would solve our problems. That's not true. Fundamentally, if we insist on these forms of discrimination, we're papering over our distrust issues with the people who are on our side by projecting that onto people on the other side. And so the ideal is that we can keep that in a sort of state of homeostasis, where this permanent, enemy is going to shore up our internal legitimacy and distrust issues. But that's not possible, especially with, disruptive innovation. And this is where we can go to, I think this has a Wikipedia page, disruptive innovation. But then, we can also, I'm in the perfect crime. Is this in here? Which is dispersable in the name of God. I mean, it's not in this. It's probably in symbolic exchange and death, but it's his, idea that the science is like accelerating the cosmological purpose of the universe and driving it to its end. So it's like, where are we going with this? It's a poetic resolution. So yeah, in terms of co-design with the enemy, I'll leave you with a couple of references. The first one is to a Flannery O'Connor short story. It's called Everything That Rises Must Converge. So it's like everything is on its way up. Everything's continuing to develop. Phase changes are rippling through everything. And so, for example, like you notice, every TV show is becoming more literate about psychology. Even if people are poo-pooing it, we're becoming more literate with respect to different discourses. And so we're, in a way, coming to resemble each other more and more, even though, it doesn't lead to the end of conflict, because we still are in these different standpoints, right? I am over here in this body, and you are over there in that body. And so even though we're, you can reference Bob Dylan, One Too Many Mornings. You're right from your side. I'm right from mine. There's that. And there's also Tangled Up in Blue. I think some very similar thing here. But so, yeah, so it's restless when you're feeling that don't mean no amount of good. When everything I'm saying, you can say it just as good. You're right from your side. I'm right from mine. And similar here, we always did feel the same. We just saw it from a different point of view. So there's that. And so the question of co-designing with your enemies, and the secret is you can't stop co-designing with your enemies, because there's a level of, and then we can go back to Baudrillard one final time, if possible. I believe this is an Agony of Power. Oh dear. Agony of Power. And we have, I wonder if it's here. No, it must be in Carnival and Cannibal, but this will be the last thing. And then I'm going to end the video because I want it to be short. But basically, it's a part where Baudrillard is saying that there's a fundamental conspiracy in which we are all complicit. And this is not Baudrillard being like a conspiracy theorist. It's more, this is even beyond, I think Guy Debord refers to it in the comments, but I don't have time to go look at that right now. He references, right, the conspiracy theory of history, which was, in his view, unrealistic for a while, but now applied. But this is more like a conspiracy theory of ontology, having to do with basically the idea. I just saw it in the movie Beef in the last episode, right? It's basically God is pretending not to be God. in order to have company and enjoy like the conceit. And this goes back to good incarnation and lots of other things. But so I'll leave you with this, and then I'll probably just start another video. But so Baudrillard writes, there remains also the nostalgia cultivated by all heresies over the course of history, the dream, running parallel to the course of the real world, of the absolute event which would open on to 1,000 years of happiness, the heightened expectation of the single event that would, at a stroke, unmask the enormous conspiracy in which we are immersed. This expectation is still at the heart of the collective imagination. The apocalypse is present in homeopathic doses in each of us. So connect apocalypse, lifting of veils, to this idea of emergency and emergence. And you guys do going.